Welcome, Dion.
Kia ora, bro. How are you?
Amazing to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me here.
I was just thinking it's your third podcast appearance, but the first is the solo guest. So,
Yeah. Grateful to be here. Grateful for the first two times as well as, I guess, a warm-up. Was quite a different one being on a podcast in a sauna for me.
yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'd done a couple before, but yeah, never in a sauna and not with 9 other men.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a different dynamic. And I think we were saying this on Monday night. We're just saying what a different dynamic it is having a conversation with a group of people versus one-to-one.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited about today, and we're just going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it's exciting. And I do like, that was the first group podcast I'd been on. And then also with Forbes and Dan. Even then, I think for me, I try to be very polite and give people that airtime just even in conversation. So to have an opportunity to share with your listeners and be a part of this is amazing. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm a huge advocate now. Not that I wasn't before, but now having experienced a couple of sessions with you, I really struggle to explain how the process works, and all I can vouch for is the outcome.
Yeah.
But
and that's normal.
Yeah.
I find it hard to explain what I do, to be honest. In fact, I think just a quiet plug for somebody's book.
Yeah.
There's a book called Tools for the Top Paddock, which was written by a farmer who I did a treatment on.
Oh, yeah.
And bestseller in New Zealand, Kane Briscoe. And he sums up what I do better than I do. So if you go and buy his book,
Yeah.
I'm featured in the last chapter.
Wow.
And quite heavily. And he captures what I do brilliantly, like just really like he's a Taranaki farmer, but it's got that real Southland sort of farmer vibe to it. Like, so I guess to explain what I practice is a medicine called Hono Hono. This comes from my grandma. So she was delivering this to me as a young boy, and it's an energy medicine, but it goes right back to an ancestor of mine called Riwai Pakiro from the 1800s. And this medicine was illegal for 55 years in New Zealand. And it was passed on through, I guess, spirit is the easiest way to say that. So my nan would talk to me in my mind, and I would hear her as if she was right next to me or in the room. And yeah, so it's interesting to say it because it seems really airy-fairy, but my nan's real pedantic with how the practice is, number one, how it's maintained and upheld, but also how it's performed and definitely how it's taught. So she helped me write out a manual to teach people, and now that's become an 88-page manual for the levels 1 and 2 together. So yeah, it's the easiest way to say it is I help people to release what's stuck in their body, whether it be trauma, whether it be stored emotions, or whether it shows up as sort of brain fog or overthinking. So each of us has a story, and my job is to work with your spirit, or that core part of you, to unpack anything that's slowing you down. Does that feel like what you experienced?
It does. And I guess I'm biased because I've experienced it. But, like for anyone listening, it's just such a, what would you say, like unconventional?
100%.
Yeah. So it's a leap of faith, right?
Yeah. And so back in the 1800s, it was called faith healing.
Right.
But that was mainly because Hono Hono means, well, Hono means to join. And when it's said twice in a lot of our Maori healing modalities, the base word is repeated twice because it's so good. So miri miri is a form of, the easiest way to put it would be Maori massage, but it's a kaiako or teacher that is very much prominent in that area. She would say it's to stimulate and agitate the muscle to release the tension. Romi romi is a more deep pressure, and then Hono Hono is the spiritual part of that medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel there's a science to it, that science maybe, I hope one day would be able to catch up to it. I'd love to have nodes put on me and clients and really work out that side of things. But basically, we carry a vibration, and the science of that is when your vibration is stifled, it's because there's something blocking that.
Yeah.
And my job is to find out what that is and help pull it out so that you can basically work to your prime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind sharing my own experience, like that's probably a really practical way to maybe give some context, right?
I think so, because it would be interesting for you to probably hear how that came about for me as well.
Yeah.
I don't think we've talked about that.
No, I mean, the whole, one of the catalysts, right, was the vertigo thing.
Yeah.
And so coming into the year was suboptimal. I was struggling with this vertigo thing, right? Dizziness, energy, just a whole bunch of things that I didn't really understand where they came from and how to get rid of them. Traditional medicine or conventional medicine doesn't really have a cure or a treatment protocol. Yeah. And so, when we bumped into each other mid to late January, and it's like, hey, we, got to get you on the table. That's what you said, right?
Dude, can I tell you why?
Yeah, tell the story.
So, Dan Hood from IHF Gym, he's the reason why I'm in Christchurch right now, and Manawa Retreat is the other reason. But Dan had, I guess, tried to jack this up for you to experience a treatment with me because, as I was saying just before, I think Dan's really excited to help people, and this is another level of help that he's been utilising as a medicine and as a practice, but also he wants to share with the world as well, which is really cool for me and also my students. But that didn't manage to line up last year. And I spent Christmas working at Manawa and then went and spent some time with family, New Year's, and then I flew down to a cave that I lived in 2012 for 2 months to just reflect on my journey. You popped into my mind while I was in the cave. There was 3 people from this area, and I guess from IHF. So Dan kept popping into my mind, Forbes kept popping into my mind, and you kept popping into my mind. And I was like, oh, that's really funny because, been on your podcast, but we're not necessarily close. When I got back to Christchurch from Rakiura, Stewart Island, from the cave, I asked Dan, had he seen you? And he was like, oh, no, not really. Why is that? And I was like, I don't know why. Something's telling me I've got to go and talk with him. And Dan's like, okay, weird. Go on, do your thing. Dan's sort of used to me and my weird knowings of things. And then literally the morning that I caught up with you, I was like, I'm probably going to see him today. And I went deaf in my right ear. And so that's with my medicine or Hono Hono, every part of the body tells a different story about what we're holding on to. So I was like, oh, that's weird. My ears got no issues. So anyway, went to the gym, drove to the gym, did a workout, had left, and then went in. I think I was doing some computer work at Elements. I was just about to go and have a sauna and a plunge, and that's when I saw you. And I was like, just been thinking about you. So as soon as we shook hands, both my eardrums blew and was like, whoa, what the heck's going on? And my first thing to you was, are you all right? But I was deaf as I was holding your hand. And you were like, no.
Not really.
Not really, exactly. I've had vertigo. I was hospitalized. And
Yeah.
I was like, and as you were talking and you were like, I'm ready for that session, my ears started clearing again. But it was like a thunderclap inside my eardrums that was like, whoa, this guy, something's happened, So I was like, yeah, let's make a date, let's make a time. And as soon as we had done that, it cleared up and went away. That's normal and not normal for me. So normal is the sense of I experience body empathy when somebody's a client or I'm tuning in either via Zoom. Like it's a practice. So I will tune into what's going on for you. But I had no reason to tune into you, and normally when it hits me like that, it's for an important reason. So I just roll with it because usually when I don't, things get messy or they don't go as fast as I want for whatever I'm up to. So that's how that came about. But with the thunderclap, I just felt so disorientated for that brief moment of the handshake.
Wow.
And there's everybody has like an energy signature as well.
Yeah, right.
And I guess my way of looking at it is we are energy inside a meat sack or a body, and sometimes the conductor upstairs is my conductor can be a slave driver, so he's like got the whip out like work.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, and then we lined up your session, and I guess you can explain what that was like for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can try. The first part is, I guess, you're sort of getting a read on where I'm at and going through a little bit of the reason for being there, right? So like the instance for me was the vertigo, and just talking in general terms about, where I'm at and like where that energy is at currently.
And how did that sit with you?
Pretty confronting. I mean, a lot of the things that you described and talked about were things that, were definitely on my mind and in my maybe subconscious, but perhaps I hadn't been able to either bring to the surface or do anything with.
Yeah, wow. So for me, it's always different depending who's on the table or who comes into the clinic or who's on the Zoom call. Most men will be there and the body language starts going and I don't like that.
Yeah.
So it is confronting. And this medicine is confronting. It's not a fluffy, and I say it medicine because that's what it is for me and obviously for my clients as well. And so I think you managed quite well through the discomfort of that because you had a good poker face. Like there was definitely parts where I felt you were really open to hearing, like, okay, something's adding up here. And then how did it go from there for you?
Yeah. And so the next part is on the massage table, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a combination of I guess like pressure. So I guess you'd call it parts of massage, right? Somewhat body work or
body work is a good one.
Yeah.
So for you, first I started off with just energy before we got to that. And I guess you would have felt the REM in your eyes going.
True.
Heat from my hands without touching you. And then the pressure work was mainly when we got to your thighs because that's an emotional storage point. And I'm not sure if you were consciously aware of it, but your tummy was rumbling quite a bit. And so that's the breakdown of your emotions. So by the time I got to your thighs, I was like, this part's going to suck a little bit. And just, basically used my elbow to push down into that storage point of emotions, and then it releases through your tummy. But the cool part about the medicine that I practice is I'll feel what it is, and then I get to relay it back to you. When your brain can work out what that is, then you release it even faster, and then those some of those confronting moments get less confronting because you've let go of whether it was fear, anger, hurt, or shame, or guilt, or trauma, because it's all energy that's accumulated in those areas, and then your tummy rumbles even more, and that's the goal for me, is that that you release your emotional stuff instead of me having to smash at it with a pickaxe, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how was that part for you? Because it's always different for me compared to somebody receiving the medicine. So
Yeah, so one of the suggestions was to record the session, which was really interesting to be able to have that on hand to listen back to.
yeah,
And so I've listened back to it a few times now, and also with Emily, which is the other suggestion that you made. And so it's like this way to instantly go back to that session and to relive it, which is quite interesting. I guess just to speak to the energy component of this, like I've always believed in energy, you know, time and energy, they're different commodities. Often they're misunderstood, I think, but the energy thing is visceral, right? Like you can feel it. You can feel things like the heat, the temperature, the vibration. And so
great word choice here, by the way.
yeah,
You've
like
sat
that?
with this a little bit, eh?
Well, a little bit.
Trying to work it out.
I'm still trying to work it out.
Yeah.
But I think bringing conversation around this is part of it.
Yeah. Well, now you're starting to describe what I do better than I can. So awesome. Keep going.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
And I might just jump around a little bit because that's sort of who I am. But, you know, one of the exercises that you left with me was to go and jump in the ocean, do the 5 a.m. beach swim. Or maybe I made that bit up. I don't know.
You chose the 5 a.m.
Right.
Good man. Brave man.
Yeah. And so I've been doing that for the last few weeks, which has been a amazing activity and a ritual to get into.
Yeah.
From the last 4 weeks, 1 week I didn't end up jumping in. I just put my feet in. Big regrets, Dion.
I think I rung you that morning.
Yeah.
And you were like, not so great.
Yeah.
And I was like, how are the beach swims going?
Yeah.
And you're like, ah. So yeah.
So what an experience being able to do this beach swim last week or 2 days ago, for example. You know, it's pitch black, right? I'm walking out there. I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, this is crazy. I don't know what's in there, but the feeling afterward, so invigorating and just
100%.
incredible.
100%.
Amazing.
So do you mind if I explain why that was your homework?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, by all means.
So when I say my nan is pedantic, these are things she has taught me since a young kid. And then realizing later there's a science to this. So with the ocean, so a couple of things. Within Maoritanga, or our way of looking at life, or the way of looking at our healing or our bodies along those lines, we're made up of water. Science has already got a proven number or percentage on that. Depending on the science will depend whether it's 70 to 90% water. And then for us, inside of these waters is our emotions. And so we have our spirit is called wairua. So that broken down into 2 words means water and 2 waters. So the number 2 and water, meaning we have an internal water and then we have an external water. Now, the reason why the beach swims came out, well, a couple of reasons. One was to balance your waters again and to get them interacting with each other again, because in this human experience, these practices were sort of not pushed out of us, but, you know, that's not going to pay the bills. You know, that's not going to help me achieve such and such and such that we're taught in school, in university, in day-to-day work life. But what's actually going on is when your internal waters are murky or muddy, it means you're not operating the best you could be. Most people don't realize that we have external waters, or our auric field. And so for some of your listeners, they're going to be like, oh, what the heck is this guy talking about? Like, you lost me. David, don't want to listen anymore. You better change it up from here. But later on, perhaps if you remind me, I can take everyone through a little practice for them, because the proof's got to be in the pudding.
Yeah.
But basically, when your 2 waters start operating together, your spirit and your mind and your body start operating together, then your energy levels, and this will be something that people can come back to listen and go, oh, actually, your energy levels raise, your vibration raises, you're in a better mood, So the science of this, right? When you go to the ocean, the air, the salt, and the water, it releases negative ions. Negative ions eat negative energy. So when you just go to the beach, and even if you park your car and that sea breeze hits you, it already starts eating the crap around your auric field. So you automatically start to feel a bit better. When you get in the ocean, it starts eating at your skin deep. So for those who suffer from eczema or stuff like that, when you get in the ocean, it'll sting for a bit, but you'll be less itchy afterwards, because anything that's a rash on your skin is an irritation. So that ocean is starting to fix the waters inside and externally. And then the job for you, your homework was, David, you need to scream and let go of some F-bombs in the ocean. This is because being a very polite guy, being a South Island man, being from the coast, you're not taught to express your emotions. So you needed to go scream some of those out. And so imagine when you scream into the ocean, it's like an invisible hand reaching in and grabbing up any of your emotional junk and ripping it out. The ocean and nature is our biggest healer, one of our biggest healers, and especially when they work together. So for Maori, I guess this practice is to help balance your spirit, your emotional system, and also your mind, because it's clearing out your mind, especially if it's cold. When it's cold, you're not worried about yesterday. You're not worried about tomorrow. You're concentrating on how cold this is.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think the word you used was invigorating. All the practices that I get people to go through, that's the outcome. And my job is sort of half directed by my nan and I guess my ancestors, but half I seek them out now. I want to feel that all the time. In another lifetime, 20 odd years ago, I was seeking it in not the best ways. Drugs, alcohol, daredevil sort of stupid stuff that 20-year-olds do. But now I realize, oh man, there's so much goodness and that invigoration for our mind, for our body, and for our spirit. And then when you can find the ones that work, that make it all happen together, that's the win.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this, that, there's a lot that we don't understand in the world and that science can't explain and that's, I guess, like it's a meeting point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Or that hasn't been tested yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's more where it's at. Like going back to cold therapy, one of my big go-tos is Wim Hof. And I love that dude because he finds the science. And, if you ever look into his story, amazing man, amazing character, but also what he's done through breathing and cold therapy is now scientifically proven, because somebody was like, that guy's full of it. And he went, prove me wrong.
Mhm.
I'd love for that to happen.
Yes.
And hopefully one day I'll get to meet this man and his scientists can. So I've already looked into how to do this at Dunedin University. So that was the first place I had a clinic. And I worked with a lot of people from the university. And what we were trying to do was I didn't have students back then. I was just starting to teach. So we're talking 13 years ago. And so the science that I wanted was put nodes on on 5 different people's heads and put nodes on my head and watch there will be a change in what's going on in brain activity, what's going on in heat between my hands and that person, whether they're in the room or not. Because what I do, what I practice can be practiced, there's no time and space when healing is involved. And so, it's probably a bit later on down the track. It gets real trippy. But that whole tuning in process. And my science friends from Dunedin University were like, that's not science. You're an anomaly in this whole thing.
Right.
we need you to have students, and then we can test your students,
Right.
and then we can test them on random strangers. So I've never actually had the opportunity yet to make that happen, but now there's 700 students around the world practicing, at least knowing this first stage of this medicine.
Wow. That's a big number.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
And that's all happened in 12 years.
Wow.
So probably not as massive as I'd like it to happen.
No.
But yeah, I guess I think we talked about this as well. I'm not much of a numbers person on profit and margins and all that sort of stuff. I'm more impact based.
Yeah.
So to know that there's 700 people out there that have the foundations of this medicine
Yeah.
For themselves or their friends or their families or their animals, massive for me.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if someone wants to book in a session either with yourself or one of the other students, there is a link we can link in, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have one website, Healing Aotearoa, so that's the name of the business.
Yeah.
That name came from living 2 months in a cave at the bottom of Stewart Island during winter in 2012.
Wow.
Because I never wanted another business. I went from being a nightclub owner and then being told to give away all my worldly possessions by my nana and do this. So I felt like I was doing this to give back to a community, whereas when I was a business owner, I think sometimes, and especially the way business used to get done, it can turn you into someone you don't necessarily like. And Auckland is, back in 2005, was pretty cutthroat as far as business went. Like it wasn't about, it didn't matter, never mind standing on people's toes, we were standing on people's heads.
Yeah, right.
To be the top in our chain. So it was always about that. And I really didn't like being that person.
Right.
But with Healing Aotearoa, my nan was like, basically go back to Dunedin and open the doors and they will come. The last time I'd sort of heard that was with Nightclubs. Moving into Nightclub on K Road, open the doors and they will come. And it happened. And it happened twice because they ended up with a nightclub across the road as well.
Wow.
And it was the hard part for me was actually shutting the doors.
Right.
Because there was a whole lot of attachment, ego, all of that sort of drama that comes with, I guess, although I gave away all my worldly possessions, I felt like a failure. So that was something that was a bit hard to sit with. And then Healing Aotearoa, or doing these healings around Aotearoa, was what really turned my life around and being someone who gives more than they take. And so that's where the name came from, is because I hitchhiked the country with a massage table for 5 years.
Wow.
Working for donation.
Wow.
And it went from being a very money-orientated person to, I guess, selfless, but at the same time I was getting rewarded in different ways. So yeah, that's where the name came from. So healingaotearoa.co.nz is the business practice. There's only a few treatments available from me personally, and so those would be distance sessions unless I had a talk with Dan about this on the way here. If there was, I have students in Christchurch who are their own practitioners now. They own their own practice. One of them, Jay, works out of IHF. So that's definitely the point of call.
Cool.
However, if you had a listener, there is the option of online. However, if you had a listener that sort of got in touch, then I would consider Fridays are my days to work on international clients. So I'd open maybe a space every now and again. I'm moving out of the space of working one-to-one, because like I was saying before, I'm really about the impact.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is workshops and retreats.
Yeah.
Is where it's at. And my thing is, like I was saying before, that invigoration, lust for life, like excited about what you're up to and passionate. I can help you more in a 3-day retreat than I can in a 2-hour session. A 2-hour session will blow your mind, but I'm all about that long-lasting impact. And so, hopefully we're going to see you at one of them, either the Level Up or the Way of the Warrior, whichever one calls.
Yeah, we've got to make that work.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
And again, it's those life-changing moments. And to be able to gift you, never mind homework of, if you do this, you'll feel better. If you do this, you'll feel better. It'll be, hey, this is the practice. If you want to really change up your life and the lives of everyone around you, this is the place to do it. This is the place to learn it. And then like you were saying before, that Forbes is becoming addicted to the retreats, because the boy knows a good thing when he finds it. And, and also he might be young, but he's actually a really onto it wise man.
Totally.
So he's, I think him and Dan are similar on that sense of like, oh, that's gold.
Yeah.
I'm going that way. So, I guess if we went back to your homework, what else have you noticed since your sessions? Because you just had another one recently. So, has there been a change up again?
It was quite confronting as well, actually, just in terms of the...
Sorry, dude.
question. It's a positive.
Okay, cool.
It is a positive. Just in terms of the questioning around, like what is the... maybe not the end goal, but like what's the plan to like exit the one-to-one, and like how are you going to basically grow your business? At least that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Whether that's what was said or not, I'm not sure.
I think it was. So also, just so you're aware, when I'm communicating with you in these sessions, and the reason why I tell you to record it is I don't remember what's said. I'm just a clear vessel downloading what's coming out of you. And I guess also, for those of your listeners that would believe in a higher power, like when that stuff is happening, because you'll have that idea and it pays off and you've listened to it. So it's like that inner knowing. My job is to listen to your spirit, your energy, more than like, it's funny sometimes on the table or in a consultation. I had one today. Talk. And I'm like, hey, I'm just going to interrupt for a moment. Oh, sorry, I'm talking a lot. Yeah, that's okay, because your brain is nervous and is processing out. I'm just letting you know I'm listening to your spirit, because your spirit's telling me a whole different story to what your mouth's telling me right now.
Interesting.
Because some people will talk out of nerves. Other people won't talk because of nerves, but energy doesn't lie. And so my thing is to really focus in on what your energy is saying. And then even with that, there's the energy of a person, then there's the energy of a business, and then there's the energy of a building. So I've done a lot of, I guess you could call them treatments on houses and businesses in Christchurch since the earthquakes. There's a resonance from what the building was before. There's a resonance to who worked in the building before. So when I was based in Queenstown, I would get hired a lot by businesses after a disgruntled staff member would leave, or those sorts of things. So that's my job, is to really key into the things that aren't said. So I wasn't I don't know enough about your business or your businesses to sort of dictate proper financial advice.
Here's your strategy.
Yeah. But sometimes, and with a lot of businesses, especially in Queenstown, because it was very business orientated while I was living there, was those messages would come out, because your spirit knows your destiny or your destination more than your brain does, and more than I do. I'm just the mouthpiece, So, and I guess from my side of things, it's super exciting to have clients come back later, or especially my overseas clients, to be like, dude, that was out of it. Like I've completely changed the shape and grown my business in these different ways. And I'm like, cool. that was actually more you
Yeah.
than me.
Yeah.
You know, because again, I don't understand a lot of people's different businesses or the ins and outs or the workings or what's going on, but I can feel it. And then I just explain to you what that's about. So, but then, like I was saying, as far as impact goes, when you jump on a workshop, I can teach you how to do that for yourself.
Right.
And that's the game changer.
Right. And so be more in tune with that energy and
100%.
that spirit.
Yeah. And your spirit. And then you start tuning into who's around you. And then you start tuning into like the energy of your own business. And I think that's where I've got to say Dan's super onto it. And a different kind, we've spoken about this as well. Dan's a different kind of businessman. So old business and the business that I went to uni for was very, like I said, it sort of taught you get to the top, any means necessary. There wasn't really morals or ethics in business when I was at school or when I was at uni. However, Dan's got this really awesome vibe of just really wanting the best for anybody, whether it's staff, whether it's the person down the road, whether it's another businessman. There's no really real attachment into the outcome, and he just wants you to win.
Yeah.
Because he wants everyone to win.
Yeah.
Which is quite different to a lot of business people I've worked on in the past. And I also sort of told you I have had a few people in Auckland that knew me from the nightclub days and then knew me as a healer in that transitional phase. And they tried me out. And then I was like, oh, you know, if you feel this has helped you, pass me on to your friends or your network. And a couple of them in high-profile businesses that are still operating today were like, heck no, I'm not giving your number out to anyone. You're my secret ingredient to success.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I don't want to pass this off. My competition might end up with this.
Right.
And I think that's the difference with Dan and also a few different businesses in Queenstown was if you win and I win, then we're all winning.
Totally.
And that changes the scope.
Yeah. It is a more modern take, isn't it? A more modern approach to business.
I also think it's 100% possible and necessary because, like, from a martial arts perspective, iron sharpens iron, if that makes sense. So, again, with the workshops and the way that I run them, it's all about you becoming a stronger iron to make me a stronger iron.
Yeah.
And again, this is why Dan was sort of insistent on you getting a session last year, and why a lot of, I guess, people from IHF are starting to try this because ultimately everybody in that gym, and it's just like the winning formula, when you're in a space that you're going to sharpen your iron and you feel good, you feel like you're in luxury, that changes your whole vibration again.
100%.
I've not walked into a gym like that. And then also Dan and I went and I guess the easiest way to say it is went and blessed the building. And it was cleaner than your average person's 3-bedroom home energetically.
Right.
As far as the signature goes. And I was in shock. Dan wasn't. And he's like, oh man, you know, thought we were going to see some like weird ghosty sort of stuff that you see on TV. And I was like, you normally would, like, but like right down to the air content in the gym. There's so many plants there that it's got a cleaner air than outside in Hagley Park with all the traffic.
Yeah, right.
So these are, I guess, those sort of, these are those sort of things that Dan sort of thinks about. And then also from an energy side of things, it makes sense. You know, the plant wall, for me, that just reminds me of traveling through Singapore.
Yeah.
But that they add and incorporate nature. And I guess this is where Dan and what he's up to is cutting edge, because the wellness industry is, you know, if you check out the wellness as an industry throughout the world, it's pumping. New Zealand is a little bit slow on the take, but and I guess the corporates that I deal with online overseas, they grateful to be able to have time with somebody like me, because Kiwis aren't necessarily that up with the play yet. You know, we are a young country, so it's also still sort of stuck in the grind.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Do you think it's the I don't know. What do you think that is?
Got a few ideas.
Yeah.
How do I put this? I grew up in West Auckland. My life for my first part of my years was basically Once Were Warriors meets Outrageous Fortune. So I don't know if you've seen that program or watched that movie,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's on the harder, darker side of life.
Totally.
And then when I work on people from Southland, there's very much become that I sort of liken it to a farmer mentality where it's hard, you don't complain, you just get on with it, really stoic by nature.
Yes.
And that's in the males and the females. And then it's that not wanting to complain about stuff. And then North Island is quite a different energy where it's survival. And then I guess the way I look at things is from the energetic blueprint of it. You know, Southland was, I guess, more European settlers came here. There was less Maori sort of down here because of the cold. We just look at Christchurch, for instance. At one stage, this was a swamp. So there's that hard graft, hard work to be able to, like, look at Christchurch as a city now. It's pumping, but that's come from a lot of hard work. And then we look at Northland and, you know, they're really feeling the recession right now, even though there's, some would say more opportunities, bigger, massive landscape, bigger cities, but it's harder. So I think traveling around Europe, traveling around Asia or Southeast Asia, you get to see the differences in the ways of the people. Like, for instance, Thailand, their national sport is Muay Thai, but you don't see them rocking around ready to kick people in the head. They're actually the gentlest, nicest people.
Yes.
You know, and then, yeah, I think my uncle really hit it for me when he was in New Zealand. He was really hard, especially to me, because I was, I guess, the next one in line as far as being the man of a household or along those lines. But he was especially hard on me, and he felt it was hard for him. When I went to Barcelona, so he lives in Barcelona now, and I was like, you know, basically, you're a dick to me. Why? And he's like, he took me, he couldn't really explain it because, again, as Kiwis, and especially males, we're not taught to speak up about our emotions or our experiences. We just sort of grunt through it,
Yeah.
you know, and get on with it and stoic.
Yeah.
He was like, I'll get us some beers, go and look at that wall over there and tell me what you see. On that wall, we were in the oldest prohibition bar in Barcelona. It's his favorite place. It's super, it's like you're in a train station with paint peeling off the ceilings, and then one whole wall is just these old bottles in different shapes, really thick glass. And I was looking at them, and all of them had the numbers of the years. And he's like, what did you notice? And I was like, oh, they're all around, you know, from 1100 to 1300. That was the age of when the bottle was made. And he was like, yeah, do you see how young New Zealand is now? And I took me a little bit and I clicked, and he was like, New Zealand's a young country, and that's why I had to leave, because it was making me, I guess, hardened. And so he's still a quiet man, but he lives above a street where the Mardi Gras go through, and he just sits there and observes it all because there's so much colour, life, and there's less macho, like, stoic, and like I don't know, have you been over to Barcelona before?
Yeah.
Have you seen how passionate the men can be?
Yeah.
And how close they can get to you in a bar?
I haven't noticed that, but it is
I
different.
noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a real small bar, and there's dudes like
Right up there.
right up there, like, and I'm like, the hell's going on? And for me, I was watching like my wallet,
Yes.
and my uncle's just laughing at me, and he's like, bro, they don't have a spatial awareness, like,
Yes.
you know, and you're just another dude at the bar. It's not a gay thing. It's not a this
It's
thing.
just the way it is.
It's just the way it is, you
Yeah.
know. And that's when I started realizing, and even in Greece as well, that's when I started realizing that passionate men, and I guess Italy as well, you'll see them big, larger than life characters. Expressive, and it's okay. Whereas, again, going back, New Zealand's a very young country. We have the highest suicide rate in the Southern Hemisphere, you know, and we've got one of the smallest populations. So you start to look at these things like, you know, and then, I mean, it's a hard one to bring up, but the whole colonization thing, like that's another, just adds another layer or blanket of why we don't talk.
True.
Because it doesn't matter which side of colonization you sit on, it sucked, and we don't really want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it's only 100, or not even 100 years old. My medicine that I practice was illegal till 1962. So that's why it doesn't exist even for other Maori. So, and that was a fight for me to be recognized, because I practice Hono Hono. What's that? Never heard of it. And then when they'd experience it, hey, that's what our old people did. How do you know that? Because my nan taught me. What did you say it was called again? And that's, you know, so this has been since 2008 of, you know, pretty much cruising around doing this practice.
Why was it illegal? Was it out of fear or?
Yeah. So again, like the colonization sort of debate, there's different sides to that argument. From one side, it's a way to colonize a place, take their food, take their medicine, and establish your rules. And here's a Bible. That's one layer. Then there was also Maori who opted for this to be legislation by saying that, well, they were introduced to the book as well, the good book, and so they're like, oh, hang on, I think we're not doing things the right way according to this book. Then there was penicillin. So 1907 is when the Tohunga Suppression Act started, and I think penicillin came in shortly after.
Right.
So again, I guess the way a lot of my other ancestors will look at it was European disease needs European medicine, and then there was also cowboys who would say that they practiced medicine and probably weren't safe, and like in recorded history that's been noted, there was definitely people who got arrested, and I think 18 months jail was the term of imprisonment per person they worked on, and I can't remember the amount of a fine, but it would probably be quite a lot for back in those days when money was first introduced.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was illegal till 1962, and you know, that was a really, I guess, interesting time in the South Pacific. So it was called the Tohunga Suppression Act. So a tohunga is, I guess, a spiritual, like in a European sense, it means expert. But there's many different types of tohunga. There's your tohunga who would be like a priest. There's your tohunga who would bless properties. There's your tohunga who is a medicine person. Your tohunga whakairo, which is somebody who's a carver. But it's an expert in that field. And then some of the tohunga, they would be like magicians. Like, magician's not the right word. but they could change the weather. They could foresee the future.
Right.
So I guess from a Christian base, that's some pretty scary stuff. So that was all a part of why it became, well, not just that my medicine, Maori medicine, but also that was around the time the language was getting beaten out of Maori people. So I guess, these are the darker sides of history that we, again, don't like to talk about because it's hard,
Yeah.
And also, most Maori have European blood as well, which is hard because you've been angry at one side of yourself and angry at the other. Working with Southland farmers was really interesting, in Gore especially, because there was a lot of men that were coming to see me who were like, that old age, that had been gifted confiscated land. And so they are aware of this inside of their family lineage, but they don't necessarily want to admit it, and they definitely don't want to give it back.
Right.
So, and all of this is, I can only think of a swear word, so I'm not going to say it. All of this is just a massive mess that we're left in our modern day times trying to work out. So
yeah,
I believe that this form of healing, I take nothing away from Western medicine. It's just another form of healing. Like, I don't think we have obsidian as a rock here, but I don't think we made scalpels and we were really good at surgery, for instance, But when it comes to energy practices, when it comes to working with plants, our people were amazing with that. And then there's also the healing and the music and that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
I was just thinking about the effect that it's had on me, just with this vertigo.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it's 100% gone, but it's radically decreased after that first session.
Quite instantly after the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I felt it leave.
Which, it makes, from a, ultra skeptical standpoint, it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
If you were to be of that mindset. But, I mean, hey, just be open, right?
Yeah.
Be open-minded.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because we're conditioned in a certain way. And when I say because I felt it leave, so this is part of the work that I do is when I feel like when my ears sort of blew when I shook your hand, I knew how much pain you were going through. I could feel it. It was, it actually took me off guard. And then working in the room with you, it was almost like a pressure in my head. And by the end of the session, I felt like actually the pressure in the head was because of the emotional stoicness, and you I don't know whether you would think you're a stoic guy, but there's some conditions or conditioning that you're growing up with that have made you, I guess, a bit stoic in your own way.
Yeah, that's well put.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if we all have that intuition within us. It's just a question on if you listen to it.
100% we do.
100%, right?
You're a spiritual being in a human body. So we all have our own gifts. And through teaching this medicine is the coolest part for me. So I could guarantee you, David, that if I had you in one of my healing workshops, you would not only realize after 2 retreats that you can not only do what I do, you have your own way of doing it and interpreting it, and you would probably find that you would become a spiritual business healing coach because this is where your interests lie. So you will have natural abilities. So, for instance, what I find with most business people, especially those who overthink, is they, before the overthinking, but they're still really amazing business people, is the intuition is dialed into logic. So you're intuitive when it comes to stock trade, knowing if you can trust somebody within a handshake or a contract, knowing property investors, knowing that land's going to sell. It's an intuition, and when you follow it, you're very rarely wrong.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, so if you relate that back to just a few things in your own life, and anybody else out here listening or watching, you start to realize, and then how do you pinpoint it, and then how do you replicate it? And that's where the workshops or the retreats, especially like the Level Up retreat, that like I sat down with Dan. So Dan went through these, I guess, retreats before they were in a retreat space. And blessings to his mum and his family, because their whole family are opening up the doors for people's healings in all different sides of wellness. And again, that's what I was talking about, like some people just being intuitively ahead of the wave or the curve. So Dan's mum, Grace, had the property of Manawa 25 years ago, not realising that it was a healing space or going to become one, but knowing it was a healing space and that the land held healing there. So massive props to that woman. And dude, you've been out there.
Yeah.
You can feel it as soon as you drive in.
Yeah, it's very calming.
Yeah. And then her other kids, like, so in Queenstown, one of my started off as clients, then student, was Dan's sister. So Camille and her partner Heath, and they're gearing up to bring IOR retreat into the world.
Cool.
So then you've got like the sister relationship, and then the other two sisters who own the Veil in town. Like, beauty therapy is for women is still a massive form of wellness. So when you look at their family, without I don't even know if they're consciously aware that they were all going to do that as kids, or that Grace, their mum, that she was bringing them up to be that. But there's an intuition with each of them that knows not only are they here to bring healing, they are astute business people, but their intuition with business and with people is used with the highest intention for the greater good of everyone. So I guess that's why I'm here working with them, because I guess they're just ahead of the curve. And so, yeah, so with, I guess, that intuitive sort of side of things, any of your people that are wanting to sharpen up on that in their own field, then Manawa would be a place to come and get that knowledge and soak it up. And then it's really easy to implement the stuff, because like the way my nan sort of explains it with the workshops that she helped me write out is it's all common sense. Like, surprisingly silly enough, it's common sense. I'm sure, like, I would like somebody who's in stock to help me to use my intuition to make some coin, because that would be amazing. I know that there's a pattern.
Yes.
And then crypto is another one. I've got students who use their intuition in the crypto market, and they're doing super well.
Right.
To the point where they're like, when's your next workshop and can I pay in crypto? I'm like, show me how to have a wallet.
Yeah.
You know, so I guess this is like one thing Dan said to me when I got here. And so bear in mind, I gave Dan his first session 3 years ago.
Right.
And his sister, who I was working with 8 years ago, was like, you need to meet my brother. She had met old business Dion's mind. Like, there's still a part of me that's really enthusiastic about business, although it's for different reasons than most business people. But when I met Dan, I was like, oh, okay, this is really interesting. And I'll let him talk about that, because I think his treatment for me was super trippy, because I guess another spirit who's a very close friend of mine who passed away as a teenager came into Dan's treatment and was like, this guy's like us. You can be best mates with him. And I was like, what?
the heck?
Yeah.
Wow.
And from Dan, it would have been a completely another realm of like what was going on for him at the time. And I think IHF was sort of brand new or like close to brand new at that stage. And then Dan became the biggest utilizer of Hono Hono. Like regular clients who come to see me or any of my students, it's about twice a month. And I guess we've been so used to being the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff where people only come when they're like in dire straits or got vertigo or tried all the other Western medicines or tried anything else and they're just desperate. Whereas Dan took it to a whole nother level, similar to the business people in Auckland and Queenstown who want to stay above the game. Dan's whole thing was, I guess, maintenance is one thing, but he wanted to be ahead of his own curve. And so that's where the workshops were actually born for Dan, the Level Up workshops, which is a Manawa product now.
Yeah.
So that's the one I highly recommend for yourself or anybody who's, again, that little bit skeptical, but something's niggling.
Yes.
You want to up your game in business, in your relationships with your business partners or with your lover or your partner, your wife, your kids. This is the place to have that awakening of what you actually can do and what you're actually capable of, and then it just increases from there. And I think that's the thing is like if you have a chat with Forbes, you'll realize that he's realized that he just has to keep building upon his knowledge base now because he can't unknow it and it's working for him, you know. And I think that's where Dan and why we specifically wrote the Level Up workshop for people like Dan to sharpen their skill sets in other ways. And really, like, the whole point is to play on your strengths. But what you think are your strengths in business might not necessarily, you might have other strengths in that you haven't even registered yet.
That's a good point.
And again, my whole thing as a kaiako in that sense, so kaiako means teacher or leader in that sense, is to lead you to where your gold is inside of you.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and like every person, not only do they have a story, every person has gold. And I'm learning that I like gold. And I like to see other people find their gold.
Yeah, totally.
And it's those wisdom bombs and key nuggets that change people's lives.
Yeah.
And then with the workshops that I run out there, with Way of the Warrior, for instance, that's when we bring in guest speakers. So our last guest speakers, which was the ones that Forbes got to meet. Forbes got left a little gift, so you can hit him up about that. But Te Ururangi and Dion. So Te Ururangi is a carver. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's owner of a page on Facebook that went viral for New Zealand and outside of New Zealand. So basically it's called Aotearoa Kai Gatherers. So New Zealand food gatherers. But he went viral in the space of a couple of days, 2 million views in a couple of days, from making almond milk.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. So I'll show you this video because you'll be like, whoa. And it's still, like, obviously the count hasn't dropped. It's just creeping up.
Yeah.
Well, not creeping up, blowing up. But he really put New Zealand on the map as far as being able to hunt, garden and fish. But his whole thing was how what we've been conditioned to believe is good for us isn't always good for us, and that we have the power to change what we do, what we ingest, how we eat, going back to how we used to do things in the old days. Like, some of that's still gold. And then Dion, he has a business, or I guess his social media is called Answers Within. And so he was probably better known for being a poster boy for I Am Hope, but he took it upon himself to really change up his own life, and now he runs men's groups and these sort of things that really help people. So most of the people in my world are people who are game changers on that impactful level. And so Te Ururangi carved me this tefa tefa that we've got in the background, which has got a massive significance. But it's about leading by example and leading our future generations into utilising all of these skill sets. And then our next guest speaker is Jason Sutty. So he's 6-time world Muay Thai champion, and I think the only one to go up all these different weight divisions. But he's also owned his own gym since 1999 in Auckland, and is still like a staple as a gym. He's trained with Wim Hof, so he's a Wim Hof facilitator, and then he owns King of the Ring. So any of your listeners that watch UFC, this is the kickboxing version, and probably the oldest sort of. It's also on like national TV. So to have a production in New Zealand that big with that many, that big a fan base, he's the man on many levels, and I guess the testament of a warrior. And then also he practices Hono Hono. So you've gone from like this really stoic, hard man to being able to help heal his children when they're sick.
Wow,
you know?
What a contrast.
Yeah. So I feel like every one of your listeners will have these hidden attributes inside them. Might be just a little bit of how do I bring this out into the world?
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing. I was just thinking about when you were talking about gold and how, energy is the gold, right? Like the sort of gold follows the energy, doesn't it?
For sure.
Where the most amount of energy is, and whether that's discovering what that looks like on a practical level. But the things that light you up and get you excited and enthusiastic, those are the things that make the gold, right?
Those are the golden moments, and that is the gold.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? So in New Zealand, in Aotearoa, you can only find, you must have heard of pounamu or greenstone.
Yeah.
So that only grows where you come from, on the west coast of the South Island.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure if you know, but wherever that is, you will find gold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you won't necessarily find pounamu or greenstone wherever gold grows. So it's a bit of a testament into, I think, why I'm here in Te Waipounamu in the South Island, is because gold is pretty, it's valuable, it's got a high vibration. It's not necessarily good for making hammers or chisels, but pounamu is hard as, it's literally one of the hardest minerals or rocks in the world. Jade, it's also highly, highly sought after. It was used as tools and weapons, but it is also carries a really big heart awakening frequency. And so to know that those two precious minerals in the South Island are found side by side, wherever greenstone is, you will find gold.
Interesting.
Is a real beautiful thing.
Yeah, right.
And so with that, no, I'm not sure on your time period on when you want to wrap things up, but I have a gift for you for the podcast.
Wow.
So it's not gold, sorry, David. But hopefully your podcast is gold for a lot of people. I've listened to a few of them now. So this is a piece of pounamu.
Wow.
So this is, I don't know whether this is something that can sit there or gift to you. I would like to give this to you after we've finished with the microphones and stuff, and hand it over and give you a hongi.
Wow.
But this is to help people with, just in case you get nervous guests on, maybe they can hold it. But it's we spoke about this on your first session. Part of the vertigo was around, it was like your brain had reached its peak. And part of what I do, and I guess where I'm at, so I don't know if you're aware, but Manawa, the name of the retreat space that Dan owns in that business, is Manawa is the vibration that your heart emits when it's in its passion. and that when you're, so if we break down that word, mana, so you've heard of this term before, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Mana, like that, that man's got mana.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a strength, it's a vibration.
Yes.
And so then when you add the wa means time. So it's time to bring that out to the rest of the world. But then also when we break that down even further, the ma is the divine light in space and time that you gift to the world. So and again that variation was broken down by Te Ururangi, who gifted me this tefa tefa. So all of the stuff you'll start to see is wrapping up in a nice little package or a nice little present for not only yourself, but all those who listen, and all those who are ready to just level up, step into a different space, and I guess carry that heart resonance into what they do. Because if you look at it like this, your brain can be like, oh, yeah, that's the direction I need to go. But you might headbutt through a few walls to get there.
Mm.
But when your heart's invested in something and then you have a genuine passion and love for something, it just breaks open those barriers, and you can get to that goal easier.
Yes.
And this is, when we go back to that, that's a part of manifestation.
Yeah.
And I think part of the vertigo for you as well, which we started to click on in your second session, was that you're trying to you're manifesting a big goal. So that's not just the podcast, but what the podcast, where that came from. So this is something that I believe you got to download, and then your head's like, okay, we're doing it. And then it's maybe, how long have you been doing the podcast, and this has been a goal for you?
2.5 years now.
2.5 years. So now it's time to invest your heart into this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this was the vertigo of like, oh.
Something's not. You gave the example or the analogy of too many tabs being open, too many browser tabs being open.
Yeah. It's a thing, man.
That stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. And I have this often, and I just have to reset, put the computer away, and hit nature.
Mm.
So that was actually why I went back to the cave at New Year's. And then when I sat in the cave, I was like, why did I do this last time? And how did I last 2 months? Because I'm 4 days in, and I'm like, I should have gone to Tahiti.
I'm not enjoying the cave anymore.
Nah, I don't need to.
Right.
But it was good for the reminder.
Yeah.
But it was the same price to go to Tahiti at that time. And I had a student, like, again, my brain went to, I'll go to Tahiti because it's a work thing, instead of enjoy myself on a beach with the coconut and, just enjoying a beach and not having to do anything. But my brain wants to make it a work thing so it's viable.
Right.
I knew if I went down to the cave, I'm going to take some footage, which I never had a camera last time, but it's going to be that pause, that reflection.
Mm.
I was actually thinking that I was going to have more epiphanies, but what it came down to is I looked at it like, the last time I was here was 2012, and I lived in this cave for 2 months during winter.
Wow.
What the heck was I thinking? But it changed up my life. And what I realized is, since then, I got out of that cave. I'd cut up my driver's license, passport, just gone completely off grid. And after the nightclubs.
Yeah.
And was sort of not about the system or anything. Hitchhiked the country, and then got sick of doing treatments on relationship breakups, and just I really wanted to be impactful.
Yes. Yeah.
And went to the cave, and from that's when Healing Aotearoa was born, and came out, opened up shop. So to realize that in the 12 years of visits, I've all of a sudden got these businesses, yes, but actually I've changed heaps of people's lives. And so, for instance, my students who have practiced level 2, in order to pass that, they have to work on 50 people for donation, or for we call it equivalent exchange now, because donation really sucked for me. So that's called tākoha, equivalent exchange, because one of my worst ones was working 9 hours for a family, and the guy was like, "You said donation, eh?" Oh, and he opened up his wallet with all his $100 bills, and he was like, "You can just have a couple of the green ones." And I was livid.
Right.
And he's like, "I think you need to put a price on your stuff, mate."
Right. That was a turning point.
He was teaching me a lesson, and that was just before I went to the cave, and it messed with me, because I went from like, oh, what am I actually doing this for? But it didn't feel good doing all that hard work and really changing the lives of people to be not valued or respected.
Got it, yeah.
And I think this is my turning point right now, is realizing that, you know, I enjoy a good suit, mate. I love a nice cut of shirt, and I like Italian shoes, and that's okay. I'm almost as comfy in this as in a hoodie and jeans and some Air Maxes. You know, like, so I think that's understanding those change ups, and I think for you, the vertigo was your sign for a change up, and now, the second treatment was actually about where you're going to take that now.
Yeah, 2 very different treatments.
Yeah, but all around the same thing.
Yeah.
But one was more your personal, and so can I ask some questions now? Like, do you need to wrap up? We can do this another time.
No, we're good. We're
okay.
Good.
So how was that for your relationships, the first one? Because that's where it was centered.
Yeah, that was another part of it. Yeah, that was around the, several key relationships in my life. But I guess what it did cause me to do was to share it firstly with Emily, which was incredible.
Yeah. Was it hard?
I don't think it was hard to begin with, because I didn't really think too much about it.
Yeah.
But then when she was listening back to it, I was like, oh no, what have I got myself into? But then the outcome was that she totally, just got a totally different perspective of me, of like where we were at, and I think it, I guess, unveiled a lot of things.
Yeah. And so is the connection stronger?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And then I think, don't recall if it was the first or the second session, but there was some other things that, maybe you won't talk about, but there was a lot of things to think about and reflect on and give a different set of energy to. So.
And was that more on family stuff, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think, just to loop back to what I said at the very beginning about the difficulty of explaining it, the value in both the treatment, but the ability to listen back and to be transplanted back into that moment and to reflect and just keep on trying to, process better.
Yeah. It's a massive process, dude. Like, and for me, like, nobody escapes it. I don't. Like, it is confronting. And for me, it's more like a brick to the face, because I can't lie to myself. So, and I know at this point in time, there's a part of me that is, how do I put this? Avoiding getting a treatment from Jay.
Right.
Because I know there's some stuff that I've got to deal with, and I don't know exactly, I can't put my finger on what it is, but I also know that out of all of my students, because I can go to any one of them, that I feel like it's got something to do with business, and I feel like it's going to need to be done by her, but I'm like, oh, I'll just do it next week.
Okay.
But what I know now that I've said it on a podcast, that I have to go get a session from Jay.
It sounds that way.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
But I'm all about facing up to that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to better me. And also, I think a cool thing is to get a session at IHF.
Yeah.
I, especially in the weekends or in the evenings, is a nice one for me to like get my work stuff done and then opt for that. So I guess as much as I'm like, oh, so when are you jumping on a level up, David? I'm also realizing, when am I getting on the table for my session?
I like that accidental accountability.
Yeah, it's never an accident though.
Ah,
There's always a reason.
yeah. Can you book Jay through the app, do you know?
I'm not too sure,
Dunno.
but I'm pretty sure if you so she has her own business called Ocean's Melody,
Right, yeah.
aligned. So you can either book her there or go see one of the people on the desk at
Yeah.
IHF,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
they'll load you up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's everyone who practices this medicine has their gifts, and Jay's very precise with certain things. And so, for instance, there, and then the other students that are all around the world now, I go to different people for different reasons. And so, but I also know I can go to any of them and it's the same medicine, but they will have their own gifts that will bring out a different thing. So it's beautiful. It's and confronting, dude. But if you want to own your stuff and really evolve and I guess level up, make better decisions, it's definitely a way to go. And I'm biased because it comes from my family, but again, I go to my students to get that work done because there's nothing else like it.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still just reflecting on Monday night, and even as we talk, just thinking about what that means going forward, and
Yeah,
that hard kind of, like, I guess that's the theme of today is almost the intuition and trusting that,
yeah,
leaning into that.
So I guess these are the things that there's lots of tools, man. There's so many tools, and like I think the thing again that I like about my nan's medicine is her whole thing is there are many ways up the mountain. Hono Hono is just a very direct pathway, and from what I'm realizing, it's just straight up the guts. Like that's the way to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But there are windy roads that go up the same mountain, and it just depends. Do you want to how you want to tackle that mountain?
Sure.
So if you looked at this goal right here, because it's not just a podcast now, it's a goal, and it's I think the potential stuff that was going on, and maybe with the vertigo as well, was that it doesn't mean it defines you. So how are you going to get up that mountain? And then the other thing I've realized with mountains, like owning nightclubs was my dream from a 16-year-old kid. And then I got them at 26 and was like, this is shit. This is so shit.
Wrong mountain.
Wrong mountain. But also like, I was looking at it from a 16-year-old, fresh eyes, first taste of alcohol and parties. I want this. I want to be the guy who owns this.
Yeah.
And then getting there and going, whoa, the workload is insane. And there's all these factors that come with it that I never expected. I did listen to one of your podcasts where I think you talked to somebody who did have 10 mil.
Yes.
And he was like, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was that? How was it to hear that?
Well, it's super interesting, right? Like it's really easy to speculate and to guess and to speak out of turn.
Yeah.
But to hear it from someone that has it, and I wouldn't say he was negative around it. I wouldn't say that he was complaining or that he said it was not a good aspiration. But I guess what I took away from it was that it doesn't make the anxiety go away. It doesn't make the fear, the stress. It doesn't solve all your problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost more. It's almost like higher level of pressure to keep it.
100%.
Or to make sure that it's being cared for and that it's being respected. And so
100%.
yeah, it was pretty interesting. And I think the big takeaway was not to it wasn't even about the money. It was just about the wisdom and perspective from someone that is speaking from having done what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
That was the big takeaway there.
Yeah, massive.
Yeah.
And Did it? So it wouldn't have been what you expected then.
Not really, no. No, I mean, I went in with a pretty neutral mind, an open mind, but yeah, it wasn't what I expected.
So just want to go back to that energy thing you were talking about. There's a funny saying that the grass grows greener where you water it. So
True.
it's not always on the other side of the fence.
No, that's true.
But that goes back to what we were talking about before with energy. Wherever you put your energy, things will grow there.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing with this day and age. Like, it's so fast paced. There's so much expectations that we have on ourselves and that our workplaces have on us, business owners especially, because there's like the growth and then there's the looking after what you've got. That a lot of people, especially business people, that's the most common thing, is they come to me to get their brain defragged. And the way I sort of explain it there is your computer is full capacity. I'm going to tune in and I'm going to empty your recycle bin, okay? And I'm going to feel what you're throwing out and I'm going to relay it to you so you can go, I don't need to worry about that shit anymore. So, like, from a business side of things, that does help. And then again, with the retreats, this is more so you can do it for yourself. So I guess that's part of it, is when we're so in our brain, and especially with logic or especially with business, finance, and trying to meet those demands, we can get top heavy. But mostly, if you understand that our brain has two different hemispheres or two different sides, one is logic and one's creativity. If we're not balanced, we're like that bodybuilder with massive arms and little legs. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so we're top heavy, or for those who are logically based, our heads tilted to one side as we view life. So I guess the biggest part of what I do is helping you to look at things from a balanced perspective, but mainly internally. Because when you can fix in here, and not that we're broken, but when you can just, I think that's the thing, refinement. And a big part of what, I guess the whole point of why Dan probably brought me down here, because he's all about specialists for the different areas, and he's all about refinement. So, that's pretty obvious to see the difference between almost any other gym in the country compared to IHF. He's taken quality hospitality, quality gym, and then quality service, and refined all of it, and still refining. So when you can do that internally for yourself, then that opts out into your businesses and then into your future projects. So I guess the thing is, what we were asking before, where are your refinement points as far as 10 million 10 years ago, and then is that the only thing that defines you, or are we refining you in all aspects and that just comes super quick? Because there's nothing to say that can't come just super quick.
Totally.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think with the energy side of things, I feel like when there's a really level amount of energy being like thrown wide, right? Like if you've got energy being distributed over the day or the week, but it's only going, it's going to a gazillion different things versus one, I think that's where problems occur.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, if you're narrow-minded and you're only focusing on one, it's that tunnel vision, it can do the same, man.
Sure.
I've watched people face plummet by just being so determined and not taking any advice from elsewhere, and they've been at the top of their game. Like, yeah, dude, Queenstown was crazy. Working, like I said, worked with a lot of businesses. I was there for 7 years. So any of your listeners that have got people in Queenstown, you can, like, I've got a good name in that town, but you would also know that that place got hit super hard by COVID and nobody saw it coming. And that, no, I'm doing it this way, I'm only focusing on this, just went bam, straight into a hole, you know, because of things completely outside of anybody's control. So I think, yeah, there's no right or wrong answers, but there's, again, going back to refining self, when you can know yourself, then you are adaptable to any circumstances. And when you keep refining and doing, like, for instance, how I was saying, Dan consistently gets treatments because he's refining on the go and learning and processing really fast as he does that. So I think part of that sort of mentality is he's able to sort of cast an eye in the future, be very aware of his past, and also be really present because he's doing that inner work. And this is, I guess, that just another saying for you, and this one comes from Kane Briscoe with that the book, Tools for the Top Paddock, and Farm Fit is his Instagram business, is do the mahi, get the treats. So you do the work and you get the benefits of it. But the hardest thing, I think, two of the hardest things to do in this world is, number one, be authentically yourself.
Yeah.
And number two is do that inner work to maintain that inner authenticity.
Yeah.
And once you've got those on lock, or you just, at least if you're always chipping away at it, you'll always put your best foot forward and you will always walk towards your goals with your head held high, your mana intact, and, you know, especially if you love it, that passion spreads out into other people.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I've watched you rock into the gym and just to smile because you're happy to be there and you're happy about, you know, what you do. And then I've seen you light up about 4 other people and then they've naturally just walked over to try and come and shake your hand. You know, those are the little things that not everybody sees.
Yeah.
For me, that's like, it's loud.
That's cool to hear.
Yeah. So again, when you're up, and you're
Yeah.
doing that inner work,
Yeah.
or you're on top of your game, it's infectious.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
that energy is like, it stimulates other people's energy.
Yeah. I guess the hard part is either maintaining that or figuring out how to get back to that.
And this is where that inner work comes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Jason Suddy, he's got this thing of everyone has the warrior spirit within them. They have the capacity for bravery. It just takes the right fight or the wrong fight or the right life decision or the wrong life decision. So I think I'm pretty much quoting him word for word. So for any of your listeners that go and check out that guy, like, he is that live energy.
Right.
And that's why we're getting him down here.
Yeah, cool.
So that's the thing, man. If you what you want to wake that up inside of you, that inner spirit, that you want that level up before the universe forces you to it, you know?
Yeah, true.
And again, that's what I was sort of getting at with the COVID thing for a lot of people in Queenstown. They were so, this is my only road.
Right.
This is all I do. And then it hit and they were like, you know, they were coming back for more and more sessions. And like, some of those people are successful business people now, but not in the area that they ever thought they would be in, because that impact of that thing that they couldn't control forced them to move into their actual purpose.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's the same with me with the nightclubs. I thought I was living my dream, and then, you know, a few things happened and my nan started visiting me and I couldn't block her out. And she was so loud that I was like, I've got to listen, or, you know, this is going to haunt me. And it was getting that way. But also my heart wasn't in the nightclub industry anymore.
Yeah.
I thought I was helping people by, forget your troubles.
Yes.
But instead, I was creating, like offering them, enabling them to have that alcohol. You know, the worst nights of being a nightclub owner were full moons, when the All Blacks lost, or exam uni results.
Right.
And those are also the nights with the highest domestic violence.
Yeah, right.
And from a kid who grew up in that, I got these insights now that I can't unsee. And that was it, pouring my last beer and going to give it to someone and being like, hang on, no, I'm not. This isn't going to make it better.
No, it's not.
In fact, it's going to make it worse.
It is, yeah.
And so I think that's a big part of the change for me. You know, now I just work with different spirits in a different way, and, you know, am involved in actual wellness, internal wellness.
Yeah.
And I still have that passion for business, the passion for being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I love people having those aha moments.
Yeah.
Where it just drops into place and it changes somebody's life.
Yeah.
And again, like watching, I feel very privileged to be able to be at IHF in the sense of watching the different business people, like, you know, how they operate, but watching, it feels like it feels, and I'm going to go back to that, feeling more than thinking. I don't think it's a good hub for people. I feel it. Like, people are always uplifting each other, and whether it's in business or just their elevated energy. So I feel like I'm in the right place for now.
Totally.
Europe's definitely calling, and I have a responsibility to my students in teaching, but I'm at Manawa for the next little while, so till July.
Yeah.
So I really hope that I get to see a few people who are game changers in their own rights.
Yeah.
Or people who are ready to level up.
Yeah.
Yourself included. To come out there and really change up their lives so they can change up other people's lives.
Love that.
Yeah, in whatever area they're in.
Yeah.
So last gift. So this is for your podcast and for your people. But this other one has got a different vibration, and this is a personal one. So this is known as citrine.
Wow.
So I can hand that to you because that's for you.
Thank you.
This magnetizes clarity of mind, but it also attracts abundance. So as far as your goal goes, and with what you're up to in this life and helping other people, because I'm aware that the podcast is only one part of you. Alt is another. You know, and the fact that you're helping people to bring change into their businesses and also bringing that abundance mindset sort of to other people, I feel like that'll really help you if you go and give that a wash every now and again. So that can be kept under your pillow, could be kept next to your bed. It's gonna really, or in your car or something like that. Somewhere where you think about abundance a lot, but whenever you're stressing about stuff, chuck it under your pillow for the night. You'll notice it physically get heavier.
Wow.
And that's energetic.
That's amazing.
And there's a science to it. You know, your watch, your ring, your TV, your cell phone all have crystals in them. So it's funny. Podcasts, as far as they go, Joe Rogan takes the piss out of crystals. I really look forward to giving him a session one day to change his mindset on some of this stuff. Because like I said, sometimes the science just hasn't caught up.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Dion.
Yeah, no worries.
I appreciate the gifts, your time.
Yeah, you too, man.
Your healing. It's been incredible.
Yeah, if it's all good, I'd like to give you this rock, this pounamu, this bit of jade, but it would require a hungi. So okay. I don't know if you've ever had a hungi or if you've ever had a hungi on a podcast before, but that's how we roll. And then 2. And then this is for you, my bro. So
thank you, Dion. Thank you very much.
Awesome.